So this week we're going to be talking about JSON files, which JSON stands for JavaScript Object Notation. And they're basically just files that contain data in a specific syntax or format. And it is particularly a human readable format. And it's flexible and widely used in APIs and configuration files and cloud platforms. Um, and commonly it's used by IT admins um, to script interactions with APIs and all these configuration files for automation and backups. So understanding the file format and how to interact with these files is important. So that's what we're going to be talking about. I have a couple examples that we're going to go over. The first script that we're going to look at is this user preferences.py. And basically, we are going to be importing the JSON module. It's built in to Python, so we don't have to um, do a pip install in the terminal. We can simply import because it's built in. And the module is what allows Python programs to convert the Python data, usually in like a dictionary format like this, into JSON format. And that process of taking a bit of Python data and converting it into JSON format is called serialization. And the opposite, where you convert JSON data into Python, is called deserialization. So you might hear me use those phrases um, and just be aware of what they actually mean. Um, so looking at this script, it defines a Python dictionary here called user preferences. And there's some keys, username, theme, notifications, and saved items. And there's the values associated with each of those keys. The notifications key has a dictionary associated with it, and there's a list associated with saved items key. Um, and it's this dictionary user preferences is very, very similar to a JSON object. Um, there's a couple differences though. So, um, true and false. In Python, we say capital T true and capital F false. In JSON, you use lowercase t and f. But in both formats. They are Boolean values representing logical truth, aka on or off, yes or no, true, false. There's also lists like this one here. These are arrays in JSON terminology. So in Python, we see this as a list. In JSON, they are arrays. And if you've done anything with Java, you are familiar with arrays. But they're very, very similar to lists. So in like real world context, um, IT tools often store user preferences. Um, so this user preferences dictionary is storing like the username of an admin. It's keeping track of different alerts that they want to be notified of. Um, and it's stored in this particular format. And this could represent a user's dashboard settings in a particular like user portal or admin console. So from here, we've defined this dictionary in Python syntax, but it looks very similar to JSON syntax. And the next thing we want to do is save this Python dictionary to JSON, and that is serialization, converting Python to JSON. So we are serializing here. Um, so we are opening um, this and we're opening a user preferences.json file that we're going to write to. And we're going to use the dump function that's built into the JSON module. And we are giving it our user preferences dictionary and the file object that we are writing to. And indentation is just handling the formatting of the tabs or indentations of the JSON file. Um, so this is going to open or create a file named user preferences in write mode, and it's going to write our Python dictionary into that file in JSON format so that it can be used by other systems. And I guess specifically, indent 4 is going to make the JSON output nicely formatted and easy to read. And this is particularly useful and good practice for config or configuration files. Um, and uh, one more thing, this dump function basically means I want to dump this Python object into a JSON file. So just if you're trying to remember what function is this that I need to remember that takes Python and puts it in a JSON file, it's dump. I want to dump this into a JSON file. So that's what this part of our script is doing. And then next, we are loading from JSON. So that is deserializing when we're taking JSON to Python. Um, so this part of this code is opening the JSON file user preferences in read mode, and it's converting the JSON content back into a Python dictionary. And the load function is basically the reverse of the dump function. Um, so that is that. And if we run this script, let me save it, um, we should see a user preferences.json file pop up here. So I'm going to press run, and it indeed pops up. So I can open up that JSON file and you can see um, it's saved as a .json extension. So the colors look a little bit different from how it would look in the Python. Um, and the indentation and spacing is a little bit different because we set the indent for, um, and this just makes the JSON file easy to read because you could have a JSON file with like hundreds of these objects. Like this is one particular object. There could be a ton of them within this JSON file. But you can see that it did write what we have. Let me do this side by side. Okay, so comparing our user preferences Python dictionary to the JSON object that was written to our user preferences file, um, noting that lowercase t and f for the Boolean values, and the list is pretty much the same for saved items. They're on separate lines for readability. Um, but yeah, that's just something to note, the difference between Python and JSON. But the fact that you understand what Python dictionaries look like is going to translate into understanding what a JSON file or JSON object is containing and how to read it. Um, so next we're going to get into um, an example with um, potentially dangerous code constructs. So talking a little bit more about cybersecurity here. So that will be the next lecture.